The ship moved through the dark space like a small fish in a big ocean. It was called the Steady Horizon, and it carried 47 humans who had been flying for 3 months. They were tired. They were bored. They wanted to go home, but their job was to make maps of places no one had seen before. Captain Park Do-hyun sat in his chair and watched the stars on the big screen. He was a calm man. He had gray hair at his temples and lines around his eyes from years of squinting at screens. Nothing surprised him anymore. He had seen too much. "Captain," said Lieutenant Kim Yuna from her station. She was young, maybe 30, with sharp eyes and quick fingers. "I am picking up something strange. There is a boundary ahead, like an invisible wall." "A wall in space?" Park raised one eyebrow. "Energy field, very old, very big." She looked at her readings again. "I think we should stop." But it was too late. The ship had already crossed. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the alarms started screaming. Red lights flashed everywhere. On the screen, ships appeared. Not one or two, hundreds. They were massive, bigger than anything humans had ever built. They looked like monsters made of metal and bone. Their shapes were wrong, like nightmares given form. Dr. Lee Tae-ho walked onto the bridge with a cup of coffee. He was the ship's psychologist, a soft-spoken man who always seemed half asleep. He looked at the screen. He looked at his coffee. He took a sip. "Those are ugly ships," he said. "We are surrounded," Kim reported. Her voice was steady, but her hands moved fast across her controls. "They are charging weapons." "I think." A voice filled the bridge. It was not sound exactly. It was something deeper, something that pushed into their minds. It spoke in a language they should not understand, but somehow they did. "You have entered the Vel Dominion. You will submit. You will kneel. You will break." And then it hit them. Park felt it wash over him like a wave. It was fear, pure fear, the feeling of being small and worthless, the feeling that nothing mattered, that he was an insect before a god, that he should fall to his knees and beg for mercy. He waited for the panic to take him. It did not come. Park blinked. He looked around the bridge. His crew looked confused, but not afraid. Kim was checking her instruments. Lee was still drinking his coffee. A young officer in the back was scratching his head. "Did anyone feel something?" Park asked. "I felt a headache," Lee said. "Maybe I need more sleep." "Was that supposed to be scary?" Kim asked. "My grandmother's ghost stories were worse." The alien voice came again, louder this time. "You will submit. The wave of submission breaks all minds. You cannot resist." "What wave?" Park asked out loud. He pressed the communication button. "Hello. This is Captain Park Do-hyun of the human vessel Steady Horizon. We seem to have crossed into your space by accident. We apologize. Can we discuss this calmly?" Silence. On the largest alien ship, High Subjugator Morthal stood frozen. He was a tall creature, thin and pale, with too many joints in his arms. His species, the Vel, had conquered 400 worlds. They had broken thousands of species. Their weapon was simple: fear. They broadcast waves of pure psychological terror. Every species collapsed. Every species begged. Every species became slaves. These creatures had felt nothing. "Increase the power," Morthal ordered. "Double it." The wave hit the Steady Horizon again. This time it was stronger. It carried visions of death, of endless torture, of cosmic horror beyond imagination. On the bridge, Park rubbed his temples. "Now I have the headache, too." "Should we fire back?" the weapons officer asked. "They have not fired at us," Park said. "They are just shouting, I think, very loudly, in our heads." "Rude," Kim muttered. Dr. Lee put down his coffee. As the ship's psychologist, he understood what was happening better than most. "Captain, I believe they are trying to frighten us. This wave, it is designed to cause terror. to make species surrender without a fight. Is it working? Lee thought about it. He had grown up in a small town that flooded every year. He had survived a war. He had lost his wife to sickness and raised his daughter alone. He had faced death many times. This feeling the aliens were sending? It was familiar. It was just fear. Humans knew fear well. They had lived with it forever. No, Lee said. It is not working. Park nodded slowly. He understood. Every human on this ship had a story. They had ancestors who survived ice ages with nothing but animal skins and fire. They came from people who watched plagues kill half their cities and still rebuilt. They were children of a species that had nearly destroyed itself a dozen times and kept going anyway. Fear was not new to them. Fear was an old friend. And old friends did not scare you anymore. Open a channel, Park said. Let me talk to them. Kim opened the channel. Park leaned forward and spoke clearly. Hello again. I am Captain Park. I notice you are trying to do something to our minds. It is not working. We would like to apologize for entering your space and request permission to leave. Also, it is almost lunchtime for my crew. Do you have any food recommendations in this sector? On Morthal's ship, no one moved, no one spoke. For the first time in 10,000 years, the Vel did not know what to do. They had found something impossible. They had found creatures that would not break. The Vel's central command was bigger than most planets. It floated in the center of their empire like a metal heart, covered in towers and weapons and the flags of conquered species. Every important decision was made here. Every conquered world sent its tribute here. For 10,000 years, this place had seen only victory. Today, it saw confusion. Captain Park and his crew walked through the massive halls. Vel guards watched them with strange eyes. The guards were confused, too. Prisoners were supposed to crawl. Prisoners were supposed to weep. These humans walked like they were visiting a museum. The architecture is interesting, Dr. Lee said, looking up at the ceiling. Very tall. They must have back problems. Stay focused, Park said, but he was smiling a little. They were taken to a chamber. The door closed behind them. Suddenly, the walls began to move inward. The ceiling dropped. The room was shrinking, trying to crush them, trying to make them feel trapped and small and helpless. Lieutenant Kim sat down on the floor. Tell me when it stops. I want to take a nap. This room reminds me of my first apartment, Park said. In Busan, very small, very expensive. At least this one is free. The walls stopped moving. The Vel watching through hidden cameras could not believe what they saw. The humans looked bored. Next, they tried holograms. Monsters appeared in the room, giant creatures with teeth and claws and eyes that burned with hatred. They roared, they screamed, they promised eternal suffering. Lee took out a small notebook and began drawing. The design is very creative. Look at those teeth, very scary. I should show this to my daughter. She loves monster movies. The holograms disappeared. The Vel tried darkness. Complete darkness that lasted for hours. Humans were afraid of the dark, yes? All species feared the dark. The crew of the Steady Horizon used the time to sleep. When the lights came back, they were well rested and asking for breakfast. Finally, Ambassador Shin Yoonji arrived. She came on a diplomatic shuttle from human space. She was a small woman, 50 years old, with gray hair pulled back tight and eyes that had seen everything. She had negotiated with criminals, dictators, and alien species that ate their enemies. The Vel did not impress her. She was taken to the High Council chamber. 12 Vel lords sat on floating thrones, looking down at her. Their eyes glowed. Their voices echoed with power. Behind them, holographic images showed their conquered worlds, species in chains, cities burning. The message was clear. Look how strong we are. Look how weak you should feel. Shin sat down in the small chair they gave her. She opened her bag and took out some papers. "Thank you for meeting with me," she said. "I have prepared some trade proposals. Shall we begin?" The Vel Lords looked at each other. This was not how it was supposed to go. "You do not understand," the leader said. His name was Grand Overlord Vethus. "We have conquered 400 species. We have broken countless minds. You are nothing before us." "Yes, yes," Shin said, not looking up from her papers. "Very impressive. Now about trade routes. We have goods that might interest you. Medicine, technology, food. What do you have to offer?" "We offer you the chance to submit willingly, to become our servants with honor." Shin finally looked up. "Do you have coffee?" "What?" "Coffee. A drink. Bitter. Helps you wake up." She sighed. "No?" "That is unfortunate. Please continue with your threats while I read." In another room, a young human named Choi Minho was doing important work. He was an intelligence analyst, sent to study the Vel and find their weakness. He had spent 3 days reading their history, watching their broadcasts, studying their culture. Now he understood. He called Captain Park and Ambassador Shin to a private meeting. His hands were shaking with excitement. "I know why their fear weapons do not work on us," he said. "I know why we are different." "Tell us," Park said. Minho pulled up a screen showing human history. Wars, plagues, disasters, ice ages, nuclear weapons, climate collapse, hundreds of near-extinction events. "The Vel have never met a species like us," Minho explained. "Every species they conquered lived in peace before first contact. They never faced real danger. They never knew true fear. So when the Vel hit them with terror, they broke. It was their first time feeling such things." He changed the screen to show Vel history. It was smooth, easy. They had evolved on a peaceful world and simply developed their fear weapons early. They had never struggled. "But humans?" Minho smiled. "We have lived with fear forever. Our ancestors were hunted by predators. We survived ice ages. We killed each other in massive wars. We watched diseases kill millions. We almost destroyed our own planet. Fear is not new to us. Fear is normal. We feel it every day. We drink coffee and go to work anyway." Shin nodded slowly. "So their weapon is useless against us." "Not just useless," Minho said. "We are immune. They cannot conquer what they cannot scare. They have no other tools. Their whole empire is built on one thing, and that thing does not work on humans." Captain Park stood up. He looked out the window at the massive Vel station, at all their ships and weapons and conquered peoples. "Then they have a problem," he said, "because we are not going anywhere, and we do not kneel." Somewhere in the station, the Vel Lords were meeting in secret. For the first time in their long history, they were feeling something strange and uncomfortable. They were feeling afraid. The Vel called it the breaking world. It had no other name. It did not need one. For 3,000 years, every species that resisted the Dominion was sent here. None of them lasted more than a few months. The planet itself was a weapon, designed to destroy minds slowly and completely. The sky showed your failures. Every mistake you ever made played across the clouds like a movie. The gravity shifted without warning, making you fall, making you sick, making you feel like the ground itself hated you. The forests were filled with echo trees that whispered your worst memories back at you forever. The Vel High Council decided to send humans here. If the normal fear weapons did not work, then the breaking world would succeed. It always did. Sergeant Baek Ji-woo led the volunteer team. She was a strong woman in her 30s, with short hair and scars on her hands from years of military service. Behind her were 19 other humans, soldiers, scientists, engineers, all volunteers, all curious about what this terrible planet could do. Their shuttle landed in a gray field. The moment they stepped outside, the sky changed. Each person saw something different. The clouds showed them their worst moments. Ji-woo looked up. She saw herself as a young officer, making a mistake that cost 3 soldiers their lives. She saw the funeral. She saw the crying families. She had carried this memory for 10 years. She watched it for a moment. Then she shrugged. "I know," she said to the sky. "I made a mistake. I went to therapy. I learned from it. Are you going to show me anything new?" The sky flickered, confused. Next to her, engineer No Sunwoo was laughing. He was a cheerful man, round-faced and always smiling. The sky was showing him his college years, bad haircuts, failed exams, a girlfriend who left him for his roommate. "Oh, no, not the haircut," he said, wiping tears of laughter from his eyes. "I forgot how bad it was. Hey, Sergeant, look at my hair in 2320. It was terrible." Ji-woo looked. It was indeed terrible. She smiled. The Vel observers watched from orbit. They did not understand what they were seeing. The humans were supposed to be crying. They were supposed to be breaking. Instead, they were sharing embarrassing stories and laughing. "Show them worse memories," the observer commander ordered. "Find their deepest pain." The sky tried. It showed Ji-woo the death of her mother. She stood still for a moment, her face serious. Then she touched her heart and whispered, "I miss you, Mom." She did not break. She had already grieved. The pain was old and familiar, like a scar that no longer hurt. The echo forest was next. The team walked through twisted trees that whispered horrible things. Every bad thought they ever had about themselves came back. You are weak. You are stupid. You will fail. Nobody loves you. Private Kong Mirai, the youngest member of the team, stopped walking. She was only 22. The whispers were getting to her. Her eyes grew wet. Ji-woo noticed immediately. She walked to Mirai and put a hand on her shoulder. "What are they saying to you?" Ji-woo asked. "That I am not good enough. That I should not be here. That everyone thinks I am a burden." Ji-woo nodded. "And do you believe them?" Mirai thought about it. "Sometimes. Late at night. When I am alone." "Me too," Ji-woo said. "Everyone thinks those things sometimes. It is normal. But you are here. You volunteered for a mission on a planet designed to break minds. Does a burden do that?" Mirai wiped her eyes. "No. No. Now come on. Sunwoo found some fruit trees. They might be poisonous. But he is going to taste them anyway." The team moved forward. The planet threw everything at them. Gravity shifted, and they fell. They got up. Monsters appeared in the darkness, and they turned on their flashlights. The whispers never stopped, and they learned to ignore them. After 1 month, Sunwoo had fixed the gravity problems in their camp. He was an engineer. Broken things were his specialty. After 2 months, they had planted earth vegetables in the echo forest. The trees still whispered, but now they whispered between rows of tomatoes and peppers. After 3 months, the breaking world had a new name. The humans called it New Jeju, after a beautiful island on Earth. They filed official paperwork to establish a permanent colony. The Vel observers abandoned their station. Several of them requested transfers to quiet sectors far from human space. One reportedly had a mental breakdown and kept asking, "Why are they smiling? Why are they always smiling?" But something else was happening. Something the Vel did not expect. The Dominion had 400 conquered species. Billions of beings who lived in fear, who had been broken generations ago. They watched everything. They saw the humans arrive on the breaking world. They saw them walk through horrors without falling. They saw them plant gardens in hell. And for the first time in 1,000 years, they felt something new. Hope. If these strange creatures could survive, if they could laugh at the things the Vel used to control everyone, then maybe the Vel were not gods after all. Maybe they were just bullies. And bullies could be beaten. On a mining world called Dust, slaves whispered to each other, "Have you heard about the humans?" On a factory planet called Chain, workers shared hidden videos of Ji-woo laughing at the sky. On 1,000 worlds, broken species began to remember what it felt like to stand up. The Vel had sent humans to the breaking world to destroy them. Instead, they had created a symbol of resistance. The first message came from a slave world called Dust. It was short and desperate, sent on an old radio frequency that the Vel had forgotten to block. "Please help us. We have seen what you can do. We want to be free." Dr. Han Soo-jin read the message in her small office on the human station Unity. She was a xenoanthropologist, a scientist who studied alien cultures. She had spent her career learning about other species, their hopes, their dreams, their fears. This message made her cry. More messages came, hundreds, then thousands, from factory worlds and mining colonies and prison planets, all asking the same thing. Teach us how to be like you. Teach us how to not be afraid. Soo-jin went to the Human Council with a proposal. She called it the Resilience Program. She would travel to these worlds and teach them what humans knew. Not weapons, not technology, something more important. She would teach them how to survive. On the slave world Dust, she met with secret groups in underground caves. The beings there were small and gray, with big, frightened eyes. They had been slaves for 800 years. They did not remember freedom. "The Vel use fear," Soo-jin told them. "They make you feel small. They make you feel hopeless. But fear is just a feeling. It is not real. It cannot hurt you unless you let it." "But we are afraid," one of them said. "We cannot help it." Soo-jin nodded. "Of course you are afraid. Humans are afraid too. We are afraid all the time. The difference is what we do with the fear. We feel it, and then we do what needs to be done anyway." She taught them breathing exercises. She taught them to find small joys even in dark times. She taught them to laugh at their own fears, to make the monsters in their minds seem silly and small. Most importantly, she taught them that they were not alone. "On Earth," she said, "we have a saying, shared pain is half the pain. Shared joy is double the joy. You have been alone in your fear for too long. Now you have each other. Now you have us." While Soo-jin worked on hearts and minds, Commander Yoo Jae-hyuk prepared for war. He was a serious man, tall and quiet, with a face that never showed emotion. He had led the human fleet for 15 years. He had never lost a battle. Now he faced the biggest challenge of his career. The Vel were sending their armada. 1,000 ships, the largest force they had gathered in centuries. They were done with experiments. They were done with trying to understand humans. Now they would simply destroy them. The human fleet was smaller. 200 ships, none as big as the Vel monsters. They gathered at a place called Hollow Reach, an empty space between stars where the battle would happen. Jae-hyuk stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Unbroken. His officers worked around him, calm and focused. They knew what was coming. "Commander," his sensor officer said, "Vel fleet arriving, 1,000 ships. They are charging their despair cannons." Ah, the despair cannons, the Vel's favorite weapon. They fired concentrated waves of hopelessness, strong enough to make entire crews surrender or kill themselves. No species had ever survived a direct hit. "Understood," Jae-hyuk said. "All ships, raise shields. Prepare for cannon fire." The Vel fleet appeared on the screen. They were beautiful in a terrible way, like sharks or snakes. Their despair cannons glowed with dark energy. They fired. The wave hit the human fleet like a wall. Inside every ship, humans felt it. Sadness, hopelessness, the feeling that nothing mattered, that they should just give up, that death would be a relief. On the Unbroken, a young officer named Bae Ha-yoon gasped and grabbed her console. Tears formed in her eyes. Beside her, an older soldier named Moon Ji-hoon put a hand on her shoulder. "What do you see?" he asked. "Everything bad," she whispered. "Every sad thing that ever happened to me." "Yeah," Ji-hoon said. Me too. But you know what? I already lived through all of it once. I am not going to let it beat me again, are you? Hayun wiped her eyes. She thought about her life, her mother's death, her failed marriage, the child she lost. She had survived all of it. She was still here. No, she said. Her voice grew stronger. No, I am not. Across the fleet, the same thing happened. Humans felt the despair, and then they pushed through it. They had done this before. Life had thrown worse at them. They were still standing. On the Vel command ship, High Admiral Vorthax watched in disbelief. His cannons were firing at full power. The human ships should be drifting dead in space. Instead, they were forming attack lines. Impossible, he said. A human voice came through the communication channel. It was a pilot from a small fighter, a woman named Sung Ara. She sounded almost bored. Hey, was that cannon supposed to do something? My screen flickered a bit. You might want to check your systems. Vorthax did not know how to respond. His species had never actually fought a real battle. Their weapons made enemies surrender before fighting started. They had no tactics for ships that kept coming. Commander Yu gave his order. All ships, attack! The battle lasted 4 hours. The Vel ships were big and scary, but they were not built for actual combat. Their crews did not know what to do when enemies shot back. They panicked. They made mistakes. They ran. The humans did not run. They never ran. They had fought through worse. Their ancestors had crawled through mud and blood on 100 battlefields on Earth. This was just another fight. When it was over, the Vel Armada was broken. 300 ships destroyed, 400 captured, the rest fled. On 1,000 slave worlds, beings watched the battle through hidden screens. They saw the despair cannons fire. They saw humans keep fighting. They saw monsters fall. And then finally they began to rise. On dust, slaves stopped working. On chain, workers seized the factories. On 100 worlds, the Dominion's control broke like old glass. The uprising had begun. 1 year later, the galaxy was a different place. The Vel Dominion had not fallen to invasion. It had not been conquered by force. It had simply become irrelevant. The species it once controlled were free now. They traded with each other, built alliances, made their own choices. The Vel still existed, but they ruled nothing except their own homeworld. Their empire of fear had collapsed like a house made of smoke. On the day of the signing, leaders from 100 species gathered on the Vel homeworld. It was a gray planet, cold and quiet, filled with tall buildings that no longer meant anything. The Vel had built monuments to their power everywhere. Now those monuments just looked sad. The ceremony was held in the Grand Hall of Submission, where conquered species had once knelt before Vel masters. Today, the Vel themselves sat at a small table, equal to everyone else. The hall had been renamed. It was now the Hall of Equals. Captain Park Do-hyun was there, his hair grayer than before. Lieutenant Kim Yuna stood beside him, now promoted to commander. Dr. Lee Tae-ho sat in the back, watching quietly. Sergeant Baek Ji-woo had come from New Jeju, the planet she had helped transform from a prison into a home. Dr. Han Soo-jin was surrounded by representatives from the species she had helped free. Commander Yoo Jae-hyuk stood in his dress uniform, his face as serious as ever. Ambassador Shin Yoon-ji walked to the central table. She was older now, her hair completely white, but her eyes were still sharp. She carried a simple document, the Covenant of Equals. It promised that no species would dominate another, that fear would no longer be a weapon, that all beings would be free. High Subjugator Morthal sat across from her. He looked different now, smaller somehow, tired. His species had ruled through terror for 10,000 years. Now they had to learn how to simply exist. Before the signing, Morthal asked for a private word with Captain Park. The two of them walked to a balcony overlooking the gray city. Below, Vel citizens went about their lives, confused and lost in a world that no longer made sense to them. "I have a question," Morthal said. His voice was quiet, nothing like the booming power he once projected. "It has haunted me since the day we met." "Ask," Park said. "Why do you not fear?" Park was silent for a long moment. He looked at the city, at the sky, at his own hands. He thought about his life, his parents, who survived a flood that destroyed their village, his grandfather who lived through a war, his grandmother who raised 7 children in poverty and never stopped smiling. He thought about human history, the ice ages, the plagues, the bombs, the disasters that should have ended them but never did. "We do fear," Park finally said. "That is the thing you never understood. We are afraid all the time. Every human being carries fear inside them. We fear death. We fear pain. We fear losing the people we love." Morthal looked confused. "Then how do you resist our weapons?" "Because fear is not our master. It is our companion." Park turned to face the alien. "We have lived with fear so long that it has become familiar, like an old song we have heard too many times. It plays in the background, but we do not dance to it anymore. We have better things to do." "Better things?" "Yes. We have families to raise, friends to help, gardens to plant, problems to solve, joy to find." Park smiled slightly. "Fear is just one feeling among many. It is not the most important one. Love is more important. Hope is more important. Stubbornness is more important." Morthal shook his head slowly. "We built everything on fear, our empire, our culture, our identity. Without it, we have nothing." "Then build something new," Park said. "Something better. It will not be easy. Humans know this. We have rebuilt ourselves many times. After every disaster, we start again. It is hard. It hurts. But it is possible." "How do you know?" "Because we are still here. Because we never gave up. Because every time the universe tried to break us, we got back up and kept going." Park put his hand on Morthal's shoulder. The alien flinched at the touch, but did not pull away. "You can learn this too. All species can. Fear is not the only way." They returned to the hall. Ambassador Shin and the Vel representative signed the covenant. The hall erupted in cheers from 100 different species, 100 different sounds of joy. Later, when the ceremony was over, a reporter asked Shin for a statement. She stood before cameras from across the galaxy and spoke simply. "Humanity did not cross into the Dominion to conquer anyone. We were not looking for war. We were just exploring, just passing through, like we always have. But we do not bow. We do not break. We never have. We never will. That is not a threat. It is simply who we are." That evening, the Steady Horizon prepared to leave. It had been repaired and upgraded, ready for new missions. Captain Park stood on the bridge one last time with his original crew. "Where to next?" Kim asked. "Unknown space," Park said. "The far edge of the galaxy. Places no one has seen." "What do you think we will find?" Park smiled. "Something that will try to scare us, probably. They always do." Kim laughed. Lee raised his coffee cup in a toast. Outside, the stars waited, endless and mysterious and full of dangers that would try to break them. They were not worried. They were human. The ship jumped to hyperspace, disappearing into the light. Behind them, a galaxy learned to hope again. Ahead of them, new adventures waited. And as always, they faced the unknown with steady hearts and open eyes, unmoved, unbroken, unafraid.